हेलो एंड अस्सलाम वालेकुम एवरीवन। अगर आप ऐसी वीडियो को ढूंढ रहे हैं जिसमें जो है टू टाइप्स ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन या टू फॉर्म्स ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन दैट इज़ वर्बल एंड नॉन वर्बल एक्सप्लेन किए हों तो ये वीडियो आपके लिए बेस्ट रहेगी। इफ़ यू आर लुकिंग फॉर अ वीडियो दैट एक्सप्लेन द टू टाइप्स ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन, द टू फॉर्म्स ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन दैट इज़ वर्बल एंड नॉन वर्बल कम्युनिकेशन, सो दिस वीडियो इज़ बेस्ट फॉर यू। ये वीडियो जो है हमारे टीचर ने कोविड-19 पैंडमिक में जो है अपलोड की थी हमारे लिए। सो आई find it really useful, so with his permission I am sharing this video, guys. So first of all we would know what is communication. I would just give a slight touch. मैं इसको जो है एक खुलासे के तौर पर आपको बयान करूँगा। अगर आप फुल लेक्चर देखना चाहते तो वो भी मैं अपलोड कर रहा हूँ, इसके बाद आप देख सकते हैं। लेकिन जो है कम्युनिकेशन जो है वो सिंपली मैं आपको एक्सप्लेन कर दूँगा कि फ्लो ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन फ्रॉम वन पर्सन टू अनदर पर्सन इज़ व्हाट वी कॉल कम्युनिकेशन। यानी है एक बंदे से दूसरे बंदे में जो है इंफॉर्मेशन जब ट्रांसफ़र होती है, जब नॉलेज या इस तरह की बातें एक सेंडर से रिसीवर तक जाती हैं तो इसको जो है हम कम्युनिकेशन कहते हैं। अब जो है कम्युनिकेशन के दो टाइप्स है। एक है वर्बल, यानी जिसमें हम बातों का इस्तेमाल करते हैं, यानी लैंग्वेज यूज़ करते हैं तो उसको वर्बल कम्युनिकेशन कहते हैं। और दूसरा टाइप जो है वो है नॉन वर्बल, यानी नॉन वर्बल वो कम्युनिकेशन जिसमें हम हाथों के ज़रिए या जेस्चर्स के ज़रिए, यानी अगर कोई मुझसे कहे कि क्या मैं अंदर आ सकता हूँ तो मैं सिंपली एज सर हिलाऊँ, तो ये भी तो एक कम्युनिकेशन हुआ कि हाँ आप अंदर आइए। तो इस तरह की जो है वो नॉन वर्बल कम्युनिकेशन में आती है। सो द simply is that verbal communication is which involves the use of language or the use of spoken language or word, so that is what we call verbal communication. And non-verbal communication is that involves different gestures of different the communication that is done without the spoken words or without the language, so that is what we call non-verbal communication.
This topic is basic forms of communication. There are two basic forms of communication. One is verbal and second is non-verbal communication. So today we'll see what basic forms of communication are. So let us begin. Now this is a lecture in brief, and we'll move on to discuss each and everything in detail. So first of all, you will know what are the two basic forms of communication. The first one is verbal communication, which has further got two sub parts or sub kinds. The first one is written and the second one is oral. And the second main form of communication is non-verbal communication. And at the end we'll move on to characteristics of non-verbal communication. So let us see what verbal communication is. Verbal communication is a message or information that is communicated through words. As this word verbal means words, so any type of message or information that we communicate or convey to another person through words or by the use of language is called verbal communication. And verbal communication has two types. One is oral and the other one is written. Since language can be written as well as we can speak language, so there are two types of verbal communication. Now verbal communication usually takes place through memos, which are usually internal letters, and it can also take place through letters, through reports, notes, circulars, advertisements, emails, fax messages, face-to-face conversations, group discussions, counseling, interview, radio, television, phone calls, etc. So as you can see that some of these kinds which have been stated under verbal communication are written forms of communication like memorandums, memo, letters, reports, notes, circulars, emails, and fax message. These are written forms of uh, verbal communication. And face-to-face conversation, group discussions, counseling, interview, and radio, television. These are, you can say, oral communication, or of forms of oral communication. So uh, these are different forms of verbal communication. Some of them are written and some of them are oral. So now we'll move on to a few definitions of verbal communication. Different writers have provided definitions of verbal communication. As Cortland L. Bobby uh, states that verbal communication is the expression of information through language, which is composed of words and grammar. So as you can see that language is language as a tool is something that is composed of words, it is composed of sentences and grammar too. So it is the expression of information through language. This is what Cortland L. Bobby defines verbal communication. And the next definition is provided by Penrose. And here, the writer states that verbal communication consists of sharing thoughts through the meaning of words. We share our ideas, our opinions, our thoughts through the meaning of words. By the use of words, we actually convey our thoughts, and our thoughts or our ideas or our opinions. So our opinions are, they are loaded with meaning, and we convey our meaning through the use of words. So this is what Penrose says about verbal communication. So it is, you can say, the process of exchanging information or message between two or more persons through written or oral words. We either write the message in the form of a letter, in the form of, you can say, a fax message, in the form of a text message, in the form of an email, or you can say in the form of a memorandum, an internal letter that is circulated within an organization. And we also use oral words. We use speech to exchange information in the form of a message, by the use of one-on-one conversation, or you can say in the form of a meeting, in the form of a telephone call. So this is how you exchange information, both orally and in the written form. So then comes the second form of communication, which is called non-verbal communication. And as you can see, there is a prefix non. So it means that there are no words. We do not use words in non-verbal communication. So messages or information that is exchanged or communicated without using any spoken or written words. It means that we do not use language for exchange of information. The message is communicated non-verbally, or you can say it is the process of sending and receiving wordless messages. So wordless messages, it means that there is no use of word, there is no use of language in non-verbal communication. Now the question arises, if there is no language used in non-verbal message, then what is that thing which communicates a message? So we'll move on to that. We'll answer that question. But you should also understand that language can be communicated without a message can be communicated without the use of any words or any language. So it means there is something else that also communicates message along with the verbal message, and that is called, you can say, non-verbal communication. So non-verbal communication includes expressions, facial expressions, gestures that we make. It includes posture. It includes proximity. It includes so many other things, like even perfume that we use. So uh, alongside verbal communication, most of the time we also share messages that are communicated non-verbally, and they are through the use of facial expressions, eye contact, sitting posture, standing posture, gestures. These are different, hand movement. These are different, you can say, examples or forms of non-verbal communication. And as you can see, that it is a powerful arsenal in the face-to-face communication encounters. So a powerful arsenal here means that it is a powerful weaponry. It's a powerful weapon that we use in face-to-face communication encounters. You cannot use non-verbal communication uh, if someone is not in front of you. Uh, Although you will be using it, but the other person will not be able to see your facial expressions. So it is a powerful weapon that is most of the time used by individuals while they are confronting each other, while they are face to face with each other in communication encounters. And it is expressed consciously in the presence of others and perceived either consciously or unconsciously. We do not have any idea when we are communicating with other people. Uh, we make faces, we make different facial expressions, we make eye contact, and we nod our head, we move our head, we move our hands, and this is how we convey convey the message both verbally and non-verbally. So we are unaware of the fact that we are actually using non-verbal signals, gestures, postures, face to facial expressions, eye contact at the same time simultaneously. Sometimes we are aware of it, and sometimes we are not aware of it. We don't have any idea that we are also communicating a message non-verbally. So, uh, non-verbal communication is, much more unintentional. We are, unaware of it. We are unconscious of it most of the time when we are communicating with someone, when we are interacting with someone. So we use our facial expressions. We move our hands, and we, nod our head. We make facial expressions. We make an eye contact, and these are as much necessary as verbal message is. So sometimes we are not aware when we send messages. We are not aware of the fact that we are, at the same time we are, you can say, sending non-verbal messages. So, and it takes place through gestures, as I said earlier, through facial expressions, through eye contact, through physical proximity, and touching. These are different, kinds of non-verbal communication. Uh, Different gestures that we make, different facial expressions that we have on different occasions, eye contact that we maintain while communicating with someone, while interacting with someone, and the physical proximity, the closeness that we have with another individual when we are conveying a message, and even touching someone is also non-verbal communication. It also gives a strong message. For example, if you touch someone on shoulder and you try to encourage him. So this shows that you are showing intimacy. You are trying to encourage the other person by putting your arm on his shoulder, so that the other person may realize that you are very much intimate with him, and you are trying to encourage him. So, and another another important thing about nonverbal communication is that they are culturally determined. We acquire these, we learn these nonverbal signals, nonverbal communications from our childhood, from our parents, when we start growing in a culture, and vary they vary from one culture to another. For example, uh, eye contact in one culture might be considered, a positive thing, but in another culture it may have, you can say, a negative meaning, a negative connotation. So you should also you should also try to understand the cross cultural differences that we have in the global environment, because in modern business environment, in modern official setups, uh, people are from different cultures, they are from different ethnicities, they are from different backgrounds, they are from different nationalities. So there, it is important for every individual to understand and to be sensitive about the cultural differences that we have. So that is why it is very important for every one of us to understand the cultural differences, the racial differences, the national and ethnic differences that we have among one another. So in order to be very much sensitive about these things, you should understand these differences, so as not to misinterpret, or so as not to use such non-verbal gestures that are considered negative in another culture. So you should be very much conscious about it. And then uh, there are, you can say, a few definitions once again, uh, uh, which are presented by different writers regarding non-verbal communication. So Coatland L. Bowie defines non-verbal communication as communication that takes place through non-verbal cues, through such form of non-verbal communication as gesture, eye contact, facial expression, clothing, and space, and through the nonverbal vocal communication known as paralanguage. So, in other words, some of the writers like Cortland L. Bowie, categorize nonverbal communication under, the nonverbal vocal communication and paralanguage. They they consider it. You can say the writer considers it paralanguage. So it is also called nonverbal cues, nonverbal signals, nonverbal communication. These are different words that are used for nonverbal communication. The next definition is provided by two different writers like Lessiker and Pettit. No, they define nonverbal communication as communication, uh, communication that occurs without words. Then parentheses begin, uh, mm, in which they include body movements, space, time, touch, voice patterns, color, layout, design of surroundings, etc. So these are different, forms of nonverbal communication that they include under this nonverbal communication. So another definition, which is provided by Hemstreet and Batty, uh, they they define nonverbal communication as that communication which includes any communication occurring without the use of words. So this is very simple definition, and as you can see that once again, it re-emphasizes the same idea that it is that type of communication which includes, which includes communication occurring without the use of words. So no language, no words are used in non-verbal communication. And now we'll move on to characteristics of communication. So there are various characteristics listed here, and you can see that the first characteristic of nonverbal communication is that there is no use of words. Language is not used in nonverbal communication, and uh, it means gestures, facial expressions, posture, uh, uh, time, space, perfume, clothing. These are eye contact, nodding of head. These are different, forms of nonverbal communication that are used in nonverbal communication. So, and the second characteristic or feature of nonverbal communication is that it is culturally determined. As I said earlier, uh, we we learn these nonverbal skills, nonverbal communications from our parents, within a culture. So they are culturally determined. The meaning that they carry is, culturally shared meaning. Every other person of the same culture will understand the meaning as you do. So we say that it is nonverbal communication is culturally determined. And the third feature is that it has got a different meaning in the sense that uh, they vary from one culture to the other. So, from a cross-cultural perspective, from the perspective of different cultures, if you see the same gesture, the same facial expression may have a different meaning in another culture. So let's take example of this V sign that we most of the time our politicians do when they are arrested, or when they face any kind of, you can say, um, uh, any kind of trouble, when police arrests them. So they make this V sign when they are being arrested, and this V sign might have a negative meaning. It may have a negative meaning in another culture. Let's suppose in African culture, it may have a negative meaning. So we say that non-verbal communication carries different meaning from one culture to another. And the fourth characteristic is that nonverbal communication is vague and imprecise. So here it means that the communication that takes place in the form of nonverbal message is most of the time not as clear as verbal message is, because for a clear meaning you use words, you use different expressions, different words, different you use language for that. So you can clarify your meaning by the use of words, but in the case of nonverbal communication, you are not, most of the time you are not clear. It is not clear. It is most of the time imprecise. So uh, this that is why we say that nonverbal communication is vague and imprecise. And the fifth characteristic is that it may conflict with verbal message. Sometimes we are, as I said earlier, sometimes we are aware of the expressions that we are making. We are aware of the gestures that we are using while we are, you can say, talking to someone, giving a verbal message. So but most of the time we are unaware of, we are unconscious of our hand movement, of our facial expressions. So it may conflict. It may, you know, uh, it may have, you can say, a conflict with the verbal message that you're delivering to someone, with communicating to someone. And the sixth characteristic is that it is largely unconscious or instantaneous. We are unaware most of the time when we are using uh, a non-verbal signal, and it is instantaneous as well. All of a sudden we make a certain gesture, all of a sudden we move our hand, and in most cases we are unaware of it. We don't have any idea that we are also using body language, you can say, when communicating a message. And that uh, nonverbal communication, shows feelings and attitudes. We express our emotions and our feelings through through body movement, through facial expressions, through different gestures. This is how we say. That is how we say that it shows feelings and attitudes of an individual. And the last feature or characteristic of nonverbal communication is that there is informality in it. We do not follow any rules or structure for, using non-verbal communication, non-verbal signals. There is no such fixed rule or any structure, just like we have for the use of language, for the use of verbal communication. So there is informality in, you can say, non-verbal communication. Uh, on the other hand, verbal communication is both formal and informal. You can use rules and structure. You are sometimes, most of the time, you are supposed to follow certain rules and regulations, and you follow a certain structure as well for the use of non-verbal communication. But as far as non-verbal communication is concerned, it is informal. So there are no strict rules, no fixed structure that can be used or that can be employed when communicating with someone. And now, as you can see, that these are non-verbal cues or signals, hand movements. The first one, this girl is waving a hand, and which means that she's saying hello. On the other hand, you can say in this picture, this girl is holding his hands to her ear and to her mouth, which shows that, which indicates that she wants to tell the other person to call me. And the third, uh, the third picture is that of a hand with thumb up, which shows that he's trying to convey the message to someone that he or she has done a great job. And this boy, is holding his hand to his chest and looking in surprise, asking something. And this gesture mostly, it occurs, it happens in the classroom when the teacher asks a student sitting at the back, and the next one sitting to him often, touches his arm, his hand to his chest, inquiring, me. So, and the third one is, the girl is holding her hand to her forehead and expressing, uh, expressing her surprise by saying, oh no. And this one is, this fat man is holding his one of his fingers to his chin and to his face, by wondering, hmm. And this one is this gesture, this posture of the girl indicates that she is angry. And you see that this man is holding his hands to cover his ears because he cannot he cannot hear the loud noise. And this picture, this last one picture, as you can see, a girl and a boy is, touching the palms with one another by giving high five to one another. So these are some of the some more non-verbal cues, non-verbal signals, and they are all facial expressions, as you can see. And this shows neutral expression on the face of this man, and this one indicates happiness. This facial expression indicates surprise, and this one indicates fear, and the next one indicates disgust. You can say dislike for something, and this indicates anger, and this last one indicates sadness. So these are, different cues, different non-verbal signals, different facial expressions uh, that you can see in these pictures. So that's all for today. See you in the next lecture. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, you are free to ask anytime. Thank you very much. Allah Hafiz.